If you saw my last movie, you know I have a lot of green tomatoes to use up. Here's what they're supposed to look like on a picture on the package of the seeds, and I picked through them, and I still had some bad ones that I had mixed in, and I decided to can this green tomato. They call it a hot pepper mix, but I decided to use sweet peppers instead of hot peppers. So I headed out to the garden and decided to grab the peppers that were required. So, I had all the tomatoes. First thing I did is I, got some red peppers, and as you can see, the peppers are doing fantastic this year. They're just, the plants are just loaded with peppers, and they're really doing good. I'm real happy. We'll be making red pepper relish or red pepper spread probably next week with some of the red ones. But I grabbed the red ones I needed, and then it called for a hot banana, but I have the sweet yellow bananas, so I'm using them instead. So I went out and grabbed a couple of them. I need 4 cups of each. So there's the banana peppers. And then I need some Anaheim chilies, and if you look at those plants, you can see they're 6 feet tall now, and they've got these big peppers on them. They're loaded with peppers on the bottom, but they just are starting to flower again on the top. So looks like there'll be another batch coming. So I got all the peppers, and meanwhile, while I was out there, a bunch of squash bugs hatched this morning, it looks like. So I had to take care of them before I left. And I got some cucumbers and some of those asparagus beans that are yard long. And the bees are out there. They're enjoying the new sunflowers that are coming up. And the birds are enjoying the old ones that are dying and dropping the seeds. So it's, a pretty good combination, just letting the sunflowers come back up from last year. So it's back into the kitchen now, and start by, I used a ball recipe. I will post a link to the recipe in case you want to try and make this. But you need 7 pounds of tomatoes. They call for full-size tomatoes, but I decided to use these smaller ones cut up. So, that's actually going to take some time to cut them up because they're just so small, and I'm taking a little bit of the core out that I can while I do it. So that took a little while. They do have a really great smell, though. I'm pretty amazed. They're really nice texture and everything to them. So I got them cut up, and then I always weigh stuff out when they call for weight in the recipe. And there's my 7 pounds of green tomatoes that I'm starting with. And then I had some left over this type that were, already washed up. So I just decided to dry them off. And some subscribers had told me to put tomatoes in a brown paper bag. So I got a bunch of these little brown bags, and I decided to break up a couple in each bag and seal it up and just, see if they will ripen as I was told they would. So I'll give them, a couple of days and check on them and just see how they're coming along. So then it was time to cut the peppers up, and I started with these red ones, and basically I just cut them up, kind of coarsely chopped them up on, 'cause that's kind of the shape that they were. So I just cut them up into chunks until I had the 4 cups of them. And like I said, I will post a link in the description if you want to see the recipe. It's on the Fresh Preserving website. And then the chili peppers, I just couldn't get the core out, so I had to kind of split them the long way to get the core out and cut them in half there. So I just opened them up, and you've got to clean out all the seeds and that core out of them for this recipe. So I cleaned them up, and then I just kind of cut them into about 3/8 of an inch thick chunks there to use. Nothing pretty. I just, rough chopped them up. And then I had started with that little bowl, but now I just had to move everything to a bigger pot. I just ran out of room. And then these little banana peppers, I was able to cut the end off and then just kind of take a long skinny steak knife and get in there and go around and get that whole center core out and most of the seeds. And you just did that and then tapped it upside down on the cutting board. The seeds just about all came out. And then I just chopped them up into about 3/8 thick ring slices there to put in the mixture. So I got them all done and got the tomatoes and peppers in there and kind of mix it up a little bit. And then the recipe called for the small pearl onions, but I didn't have any of them. I had the some of the smaller white ones that I grew that never really grew right. But, they're still good onions, so I just, decided to clean them up and use them and just kind of cut them into some small chunks there. They will fall apart in the pickling, but I think they'll work okay. They have great flavor, nice sweet white onion. And then they called for 5 cloves of garlic. You're supposed to somehow, put it in there, cook it up, and then get 1 clove in each jar, which never happens to me. So I just figured I'd take take the garlic and just clean it up, and then just slice it up a little smaller and throw it in. So at least I'd know there would be some in each jar when I'm done. May not be the best way to do it, but I'm lazy. And then you need a little bit of canning and pickling uniodized salt to throw into the mixture there. And just stir everything together real good. So now it's time to get the spices out that I need. And you just, basically need some mustard seed and some pickling spices. And you have to make a little bag to put them in, a little spice bag. So I buy this cheesecloth at my local dollar store for like $1 a pack. And it's easy to just take and cut a piece off whenever you need it. It works good for jelly making or even for, spice bags like this. So I just cut a piece off, and then I just kind of opened it up, a couple layers thick, and then cut it in half. So I had 2 pieces big enough and laid one over the other. And, now I'm just going to throw my spices on it. Got the pickling spices first there, and the mustard seed going to throw in that little pile there. And the reason you use this bag is so that you can just pull it out at the end and not have these spices mixed in, but yet you can infuse the flavor out of them. So then you just pull it up together like a little hobo sack there, and I take a piece of cotton butcher twine or string and just tie it up, and that's my little spice bag there. And when I get done, I usually leave like a foot of string extra attached to it, just so it helps find it in the pot sometimes. Sometimes the string is all you can find. So then you have to use a 5% vinegar for this, for pickling to be safe. And so I'm going to take a pot that's going to be big enough to hold everything in the end and put my vinegar in. And then I'm going to, add some water that they tell you to add water. And then there's also, this recipe uses sugar too. And, I did taste some of them in the end, and they are really fairly good tasting pickle. So then, it's just a matter of turning the heat on and heating it up slowly. And while that's heating up and starting to dissolve, I get all the jars out and get the canner loaded up and ready to go. You really just, have to wash all the jars good with some hot soapy water and make sure they're perfectly clean, especially if you're reusing them year after year. So just get a good brush, and it's a pretty easy job to do. And then with these new style lids, you also have to wash them in hot water also. So, I give them a little bit of soapy water bath there and rinse them off good, and they're ready to go. You no longer heat them up in a pot like you used to with the old lids. So here we are, just getting the pot filled up and getting some water in there and getting the jars heated up to give them a good steaming and to kind of disinfect them. And then I got that brine up to a boil, so now I'm throwing the sack in there, a little spice sack, and let that boil for 10 minutes to infuse into the liquid there, and then just go back and I'm adding all the the veggie mixture now, the tomatoes and peppers and everything else. So I got that in that pot, and now you have to bring this up to a boil, which actually takes quite a long time. It takes a while because there's really a lot in that pot. So once you get it boiling, you just have to boil the mixture for 10 minutes according to the instructions. And then, once that's been boiling for 10 minutes, the jars are hot and sterilized by now. So I'm just going to take them out and drain them, and get them all ready to start the filling process here. Just have to be careful whenever you're dealing with this kind of stuff, because there is a lot of steam that can burn you very easily. So then I just I'm starting to fill the jars here and trying to just get mostly solids with the the first pass through here, and then I'll go back later and I'll just put some brine in to get the jars mostly filled. So fill the jars up with the mixture, and then I go back and I put a little bit of brine in until that's topped off just about, and then you take this little canning tool and you poke that down in there in each jar a couple times and make sure you get all the air bubbles out of them. And then after that's done, what you have to do is just on the other side of that there's a headspace gauge, and you just have to go back through and set the headspace on these. And for this mix it was a 1/2 inch headspace. So you have to make sure they use that second notch down. Each notch is a 1/4 inch. And then I take a damp paper towel and just kind of wipe off the surface in case I spilled anything on it. And then just set the wash lids on. And it's funny, these lids I bought these about 1.5 years ago, and I still have some. And if you look at this box, it actually says that they're good for up to a year. So I guess the new ones being 18 months might be good a little longer now, but I'm still not happy. And that could be why I had the problem with losing some seals last year. But get the lids on, then you go back and start all the rings on. And then I have one of the little ball mitts to hold the jar while I, kind of snug up the lid. And it, just the same thing you do with any other canning process. Just get them back into the water, the hot water there, and you want to try to do this as quick as you can, because it's the pickles are actually hot, and you want to keep them as hot as you can. And so you get them in there and make sure that you have about 1 inch of water covering them while you process them, and then you put the lid on and get that coming up to a boil. In the meantime, I start cleaning up the next set of jars. And once the pot starts boiling and you feel it's boiling pretty good, you start your timer, and you just make sure that you always keep the pot above a boil while it's timing. And then when it times out, I just take and turn off the fire under the pot for a couple of minutes, and give it a couple minutes, take the lid off, and then just start removing the jars carefully. Some people, if you're not doing another batch, you can just let everything cool down in the pot there too if you want. But I'm trying to get another batch in as quick as possible here. So in the meantime, I've had the rest of it that was in that pot on a low fire, keeping it hot. So there it is, the first 8 jars out, and actually they look pretty good, and you could hear them popping as they were coming out. So they all seem to seal real good, and so now I got the next batch of jars for the second run, getting them in there and getting them steamed up for a little while. And in the meantime, while these are heating up, I heated up that mix again to boil and filled the jars just like the last time, and it's back into the pot to process them. So basically here we are. I got supposed to get 5 quarts out of it, and somehow I got 14 pints. So my math just doesn't add up there. But the jars are cleaned up, marked, and ready to go into the root cellar now. So they look like they're going to be pretty good. I'll give them a couple weeks to to get the flavor, really good flavor, and then I'll try them. And in the meantime, today we did another batch of a dilled pickled tomato, and I still have about a couple 100 pounds of green tomatoes to use up, so I guess I'll try the green tomato salsa next. But in the meantime, I did get to pick my first melon, and oh my god, you should smell this thing. It is just so good. I'm just enjoying that now. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.